Andrew, it's your turn now. Do you throw under the bus, or are you in an uplifting mood today, my man?
I'm trying to be as uplifting as I can, Max, after watching the
Oh,
Canadians so far this year. They need some uplifting. So I'm going to be positive. I'm going to say it's a very long season. We're not very deep into it. And Lane
yeah.
Hutson is going to win the Calder Trophy this year.
Oh my God.
I think that folks are kind of underestimating his impact so far because the Canadians have been such a mess. But you watch the way that the entire scope of the game shifts when he gets onto the ice. He's got 7 points in 14 games so far. Very, very unlucky from a shooting perspective. And at that same time, that's while the Canadians are playing some of the worst hockey that I've ever seen. They are a complete and total mess. And most shifts when Lane Hutson's on the ice, it's not him who's been an issue, offensively or defensively. He's the one who's holding everything together and being relied on by the coaching staff until everyone else messes up, even the veterans. So the composure that he has so far early this season, when the players start playing to the potential that we expect from them, which will happen. I think this is short term, what's going on right now. We're going to see some good hockey still out of Caulfield, Suzuki, Slavkovsky, Doc, etc. Patrick Laine will come back at some point this season. The power play seems to be significantly improved based on the last couple of seasons. I think long term, over the course of this season, Hutson has dropped himself into the right position at the right time on the right team, a team that really wants to get going. And he's going to be a key part of the second half of this season. And it's going to be all Hutson all the time on all the highlight packs. I'm telling you, he's going to get it.
Well, that's an interesting take. Daph, how do you react to this?
Cannot disagree on this one, Andrew. It's tough to not agree with it, but and I will say I don't know if the Montreal Canadiens are relevant enough to for him to win the Calder Trophy, and but for me, it's also the confidence that he has in his game. Like it's really impressive to see a rookie as you said, like changing the game and just doing what he does on the ice. He's really impressive, but I don't know if people are going to look at our market because the Montreal Canadiens are having a tough season.
Well, that's interesting. Kaya, what do you think out there out west? What have you seen from Lane Hutson so far?
Okay, I will say, as somebody who is far removed from the Montreal market by thousands of kilometers, I have not seen a lot from Lane Hutson. I'll admit that. Aside from Habs fans on my timelines, like I, that's the thing is, I feel like the Lane Hutson hype right now for the Calder. I hate to bring it back to the West Coast, but is that just because Macklin Celebrini is injured right now?
Mm,
It's
Well, that
that
is
is
a
a
very
very
good
good
question.
point.
I think the thing that tips the scales for me in terms of Hudson in particular is less that like he's not going to be as good as Macklin Celebrini because Celebrini is going to be, a generational player most likely. But if you look at the impact that he's having on the game, and especially if you look at some of the really interesting like micro stats, things like how often he has the puck. And I worked at Sportlogic back when they were first launching as a company. I got to be a consultant in how they were building their data and see behind the curtains. And what I'm seeing with Lane Hutson reminds me of something that I saw when I was with that company and able to dig into, you know, unbelievable amounts of analytics was Quinn Hughes. When Quinn Hughes came into the NHL with Vancouver, it wasn't with as much fanfare as, say, Cale Makar. The offensive production wasn't necessarily at the same level, although it was not by any stretch not good. It was incredible. But what I saw with Quinn Hughes was nobody in the NHL had the puck more often than him compared to like the rest of their team. He had the highest slice of the pie of any player in the entire NHL. And it was not just in terms of how often he had the puck, but how many specific plays he was making compared to everyone else in the league. He absorbs the puck and creates what happens on the ice at all times. He has so much control. And a lot of those same markers apply to Hudson. And the crazy thing is, so far, probably because the Canadians are bad, those same metrics are even stronger for Hudson. So I see the ability to control play from each end of the ice, totality. That's what I'm looking at with Hudson, and I see a budding superstar.
Andrew, I highly appreciate your brain on this. With that being said, I would have one question and one remark. Number one, I love those micro stats. I mean, no disrespect, but I don't think Calder voters will take them into consideration. Number two, you compare the micro stats to Quinn Hughes. So I'm going to ask you this. Quinn Hughes at 53 points in 68 games as a rookie. Do you think Lane Hutson can have those traditional stats?
Yes, because scoring is actually higher now, and he's going to get the opportunity. Eventually, this team's going to figure it out to the point where they're not unbelievably bad every single night. They'll be somewhat competitive, and they have enough good players at the top end that Hudson's going to be able to find some good situations to get some goals in. I think it's a very similar situation, honestly, to what Quinn Hughes came up with in Vancouver, where there's some good pieces, but you know the team's a little bit far away. And I think it's a good situation for him.
Interesting.
I will also just say, it took like many years for Quinn Hughes to be taken seriously by a lot of people in the NHL. So I'm not sure if that comparison is good for his Calder chances, because like it took how many years for Quinn to get recognition for the Norris. But that's just
And maybe he's gonna be, unfortunately, in the shadow of Macklin Celebrini.
Oh, yeah. I think if Macklin Celebrini stays healthy, unfortunately, Andrew, I hope you're right. I think he's going to come up short.